Hello, and welcome to this episode of ArtsAbly in Conversation. My name is Diane Collin. I am a white woman with short brown hair, blue eyes, and glasses, and today I wear a light blue top. Behind me is a dance studio with gray walls, tall mirrors, and spotlights. This series presents artists, academics, and project leaders who dedicate their time and energy to a better accessibility for people with disabilities in the arts. You can find more of these conversations on our website, artsably.com, which is spelled ArtsAbly.com. Today, ArtsAbly is in conversation with Riccardo Baldini, a pianist, innovator, and entrepreneur living in Edmonton in Canada. You can find the resources mentioned by Riccardo Baldini during this episode on ArtsAbly's website in the blog section. Welcome to ArtsAbly in Conversation. Today I am with Riccardo Baldini, who is a pianist, an innovator, and an entrepreneur living in Edmonton in Canada. Welcome, Riccardo.
Thank you for having me, Jan. Diane? Sorry.
Diane, yes.
Diane, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. I've followed you for some time now because you've been famously shown in some amazing shows on TV and on CBC and on AMR TV and on other things. But that's how I discovered you, and I've discovered that you have a great path in music, but also in your own career. So would you mind presenting yourself and also telling us a little bit of what you're doing today?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'm not sure about the word famous, but I mean, I'll take it. I mean, I don't feel that way, but good to know you found me and that we're here today. It's just like, what can I tell you about myself? I mean, I come from Italy, and I was born and raised in Fano, as you've seen Push, and I grew up there. And about 8 years ago, when I was 23 years old, I moved to Canada, in Edmonton. Um, the reason why Canada is because a lot of people ask me that question, especially more people ask me why Edmonton. But my dad was born in Toronto. My grandpa moved here in the 50s and had 3 kids. And then they all moved back to Italy, moved back home when my dad was 10 years old. So he grew up there, and I was born there and raised there. But I always heard about Canada growing up, from family stories. My grandpa had many stories to tell about his time here. He spent about 15 years, I think, in Toronto. So because my dad was born here, he had dual citizenship, and I acquired it as well. So the choice of let's go to Canada was a relatively easy one on where to go, because I already had my documents, right? I never came here in Canada before, when I was 23. But at the time, my dad was here already for work. So I decided to come to Edmonton, where my dad was at the beginning. They all moved back home in Fano, Italy, but I stayed, and I'm happy now to call Edmonton home as well. So had a lot of projects and coming up here, and that already stuff I've done, and I find it very, very fulfilling for my life, and gives me a lot of meaning. I don't know, we can take many angles, but I guess I've studied music back home at the Gioacchino Rossini's Conservatory in Italy, and I earned a master's degree in piano performance. I also studied environmental sciences back home. I got a bachelor before moving to Canada, and where here then I completed a master's in forestry here at the U of A. Amazing program. It was very, very nice to learn from Canadians, through like scientists and researchers from Canada. They're like top notch. Like I really had a good experience at the U of A. I learned a lot. Didn't do much with the degree itself, because then I started doing ventures with my microgreens and other stuff. So this is a quick overrun of my life. But I suffered a spinal cord injury. That's also a part. But I don't know if you want how much you want to know. I can go on for like 20 minutes.
Sure, let's go on for 20 minutes. So what happened when you had this? You had a car accident?
Yeah, so I didn't have any accident. My spinal cord injury, which I suffered about just over 6 years ago. So you can picture, I arrived to Canada 2017. I'm 23-year-old. I'm starting to settle here, trying to figure out a life, what to do, because I moved here with no project particularly mine. I just came here, I had my passport. Let's go check it out. I don't know. So I just came here, and I started to, bug people around, try to find something to do. I need to find a job. I started teaching piano before my injury. And just about 2 years in Canada, I woke up paralyzed one day. I had spinal cavernoma, it's called, burst in my spinal cord and bled. So overnight, this bleeding caused a spinal cord injury, a permanent paralysis. So you can imagine, and the day before I was just healthy, never been to the hospital, 25 years old. And the following day, the morning, I woke up paralyzed. So that was quite the shift. And reorganizing my life around my new condition, which is now affecting every single aspect of your life, not only using a wheelchair, but many, many other things. And so I was doing my master's in forestry at the time. I was already about to complete my first year of my master, and at that time, I was picturing myself going out being in the outdoors, pursuing something like forest management, Jasper, whatever I was end up doing after my master's. So I was picturing my outdoors. I had my piano, which I started performing here in Edmonton in a few occasions before my injury, and was teaching piano. So I was, doing a few things before my injury. But then once that happened, I had to reshape and rethink a little bit how to approach life in general. And because now the outdoors were not longer accessible, particularly if you want to go in the woods, big fan of hikings and, going overnight with a tent and sleep in the wild. The wheelchair is not really suited for that kind of stuff. You can find, turn ways around it with machines, or, the bow head, as you might have seen in the in Push. I love that machine, but it's not really something that you would do with ease as you would be as a walking around. So from my master's in forestry, I guess that's where my business, the microgreens business with indoor farming that I do now here, and I run this business here in Edmonton, and that's where it comes from my passion from plants. And Resonate, which is the device I had to develop in order to go back and regain my function at the piano, comes from my passion in music. So we can dive a little more into what these are, but I had to basically reshape a little bit and rethink what to do and how to do it, especially.
Mm-hmm. So what happened then? You have to change your career plans, you have to change your tools because now it needs to be accessible. You have to change maybe your house. What happened?
Yeah. So as those of you who know how to play the piano, I'm going to start there. You want to understand that, yes, I retain my hand function because my spinal cord injury is at the thoracic level. So it didn't really affect my hands function. My paralysis is literally from the chest down. My legs are now paralyzed, but my hands work just fine. So thank God I could, keep using the keyboard, but now the piano pedals are no longer accessible to me because my legs are paralyzed. So, I was right from the get-go, like I remember a couple of weeks in my injury, trying to look tirelessly out there for a solution for, overcoming this problem and regain my ability to play the piano. Because about 80% of music, especially if you do classical, like I've been trained for, really requires the use of the sustain pedal or damper pedal or resonance pedal, which is the right pedal on the piano. You really need that pedal to be able to play and perform. And there was nothing out there, to my great surprise. Like, you might think, what do you mean there's nothing? Anything is just like, nowadays you have everything. And I found nothing. There was like a few things here and there, but really not commercially available, and also not that great. I even flew to Germany to try one unit that I found from this like private guy, but it was not really a functioning device for what I know about piano performing and how to actually approach music with a piano. That was not something that would have worked, not in the way I wanted to. So I guess a year in, I decided, well, I guess I'm gonna have to do something about it. So that's where the idea for Resonate, which is now the device I'm able to use to perform again, it's allowing me to press the piano pedal through a mouse splinter. So basically, I bite on this device, on this bite switch, and I'm able to action the right pedal of the piano, which is crucial for playing. I'm happy to say that after years of developing and designing, we went through several iteration of what now is the final prototype, which are moving to product and production, because we have gained interest from lots of people around the world. So we are now trying to manufacturing. We are moving towards the first production run of Resonate. It gave me back the ability to play, and I'm pleased to share that this weekend, a few days ago, I've performed with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra with a full orchestra on stage at the Winspear Center. So thank you to the whole organization for the opportunity and for making really great things happen. And as I said, it's a big win for music and accessibility. in music. So I was able to perform again in this occasion with a full symphony orchestra. I've done other performances also before, not with a symphony orchestra though, which is, to me, has been like such a magical moment, and something that I will remember. It's the first time ever in the world I don't see anyone. There's no footage or recording or any news article, anything that of a person in a wheelchair being able to perform as anyone else on stage with a full symphony orchestra ever before, which is incredible that happened. So I'm really excited and happy for what this could bring into the future, and especially for potential disabled kids, disabled musicians that now can think, oh, then maybe it is possible. Because until when it's never done before, then it's not possible. You don't think it is possible. And once somebody is doing it, then perhaps opens the gates for many more, which is my goal. I want to see kids with disability pursuing a music career like anyone else, with no distinguishment from whatever you have a wheelchair or not. You just you're gifted musician, you're gifted, you want to play the piano, you go for it. You don't have these dreams broken because there's no model out there, nobody has done it, you have disability. That's where really my why comes from when it comes to resonate adaptive, if that makes sense.
It makes sense, and I will come back to the concerts because it's a very interesting thing. But I want to go back to before all that happened. So at the moment where you were thinking of the solution, and maybe partnering with people and saying and explaining, trying to sell your concept, or trying to collaborate with people, what this process of creation and of adapting and evolving, making the project evolve, how it took several years, but how did you work with people on that?
Well, yes, good question. I'm not an engineer, so I have my musical background. I understand with my lived experience what it is to have wheelchair and all that, but I'm not an engineer. So somehow I managed to convince Steve, which is a good friend of mine now, and also co-founder of Resonate, to build this device. Like I remember approaching him through an association, and we built the first prototype with some fundings, and then I convinced him that why don't we just do it and we make this available for anyone who needs it. And somehow he was like, I think it's a good idea, somehow I convinced this was a good idea to do. So it's I guess I'm a bit stubborn, and perseverance is key, and believing in the project, because until it's done, you don't think it's possible, and you need to really know that it's going to happen. So that's I guess a bit of my being stubborn and wanting to really make it happen, and not wanting to give up. I was thinking, even not too long ago, why nobody ever did it, right? Because that's actually a fair question. I was surprised and also heartbroken that nothing was out there. I would have bought something. But I guess then thinking about it is like, well, you need that intersection between, background in music to, somewhat a professional level, that you really know how piano works and how playing the piano works. And, at the same time, having a disability that makes you having that understanding as well. And you want to have that happening somehow relatively soon in life, so you have the motivation and the will to do it. And then you have to have the resources and the entrepreneurship of wanting to do something. So it's kind of a bit of an intersection of a few elements that makes it quite unique, and it's quite of a niche product at the end, quite of a niche need, which then extended worldwide is actually quite helpful for many people, also stemming into different use, not just for piano, for example. And then you have to find somebody who is doing it with you. So connecting, finding resources in terms also of like literally money. So it's a whole bunch of things. And I was lucky enough to find this engineer, that great guy, that is a literally rocket scientist, because he is working for a company as a manager there, mechanical design engineer manager. and they have clients like NASA, SpaceX. So it actually literally build stuff for rockets. So they had the right equipments and right stuff to really make this happen, and they were happy to do this with me. So I guess it's a bit of combination, and luck goes to where you put hard work, I guess, and also luck itself. You need to find the right people to collaborate with.
Yeah, and also, I mean, for those who have seen Push, the first steps of it, and when you tried it and it didn't start and it didn't work the way you wanted and it clicked too much. So it's a lot of research and development, and it's a lot of working together again on a new version and things like that. So how long did it take from the moment you had one first version of your draft version, right? Like the moment you had one version to the one that is ready to go today?
So I would say probably between 4 years, close to 4 years, 3 4 years. By the time the idea popped and said, like, I'm gonna do this now, to having the last device that actually is as it should be. And as I know pianos, I know it works perfectly. I remember how he's using my foot. I know how it should sound. I know how it should work. I know this is exactly how it should work. So we haven't stopped until we achieved that degree of quality for the device. And we have been going through several iterations. The first one was so loud that was kind of like, I cannot play with this. It was a completely different design, a completely different type of device that was not really functional. It was not really, you've seen it on Push, how frustrated I was. I remember even from the get-go, the beginning, I said, well, this is very good proof of concept, but it's not good. In fact, I was not using it. I was not really using it as much or enjoying playing, because that's what was the first, real reaction when I got this last one. I like to say it made me walk again with music. Like it really did give me back. And from the very first time I tried, I said, yes, that's it. This is good. This now it's how it's supposed to be. And I didn't have that feeling, that reaction manifesting as well. The first device was not really functioning. It was more of a proof of concept, and going from there, doing all that work and having this thing eventually in my living room, and it's like, but this is not good. And then trying to keep going and keep working with more people. I started collaborating. I reached out to a couple of universities which took on the projects, with a few things to develop different type of action to it. And eventually going back with Steve, we actually made the final one, which is now it's how it's supposed to be. It seems like a simple thing. At the end, is trying to press one pedal, but there are so many nuances on how that pedal should be pressed that makes it quite complicated, because you want to be extremely quiet. You can't be loud because you're playing music. It has to be silent. Second thing, you want to make sure that it's portable, because don't have the luxury as a pianist, like some other instrument players like violin, to carry around our own instrument. I cannot really carry my piano on my shoulders and go around with it. So I need to be able to move my device from my home setting to any other setting or stage I'm going to perform. Like what I did this weekend, if I didn't have that type of design, how am I supposed to then play on stage at the Winsphere? I cannot just, can we custom make something for that piano when I come for performing? Obviously, it's not feasible. So you need to make it portable. You need to make it adjustable, because every single piano has a different pedal system, has a different setup, has a different, so you need to make sure that when you arrive at stage, which normally what happens, you're doing one rehearsal and that's it, and then you concert, right? When you're performing professional with professionals, you don't have a month of trying stuff out. You have 15-20 minutes and that's it, and then you're on stage next day with the audience, right? So it has to work right at the get-go, and you don't want to arrive there, I don't think I can do it, because then they're relying on you. You sign a contract or whatever it is, right? So there are a few details and many more that I could list, but that are going into the design of these of Resonate, right?
Mhm. So let's go back to the concert.
Yes,
I remember on Mind Your Own Business that they
yes.
were telling you at the point where you were presenting the project, um, find an orchestra to partner with and try to to showcase your products. And so did this concert with the Edmonton
Symphony
Philharmonic
Orchestra.
Orchestra, Edmonton Symphony Orchestra, sorry. Was it part of that idea that let's showcase it, or did they come to you and say we want this concert to happen? How did it go
Yes,
to preparation?
I had an initial contact with them. I believe, I don't know how long ago. Perhaps was November last year, December. I had initial contact. I had a common person that knew somebody there, so they organized, an introduction over email, and then I just say, "Hey, can I come, meet with you?" And I brought the device, and we chatted a bit. I just played a few things on stage that made me try their stage, and they saw what it is, and then goodbye. That's it. A few months later, they sent me an email. Hey, do you want to perform? So that's how it happened. It's not that I had to, um, you know, it was like that. It's just an introduction, and I got to meet the right people there, and then from there they invited me to play, and it seems like the concert has been a pretty good success in a sense that they have been sold out for the whole three performances. It was beautiful music, like more like anime music, so not strictly classical, but very very good music that I really enjoyed practicing and performing. And the audience was like wild, because also it was not an audience accustomed to maybe a theater, and it was not a classical music type of audience. So it was very participant, very expressing how the appreciation. So it was a good outcome of the concert, and I don't see why it would not happen again in the future. So it would be very exciting to know that that's a possibility. So hopefully many more to come. I really enjoy, and I want to show that it's possible to do it. Maybe touring as well. That would be a
Yeah,
good goal.
I mean
And
it's
yes,
portable.
yes, at the time of Mind Your Own Business, I was thinking that's something I want to do. I think it would be great for many reasons. Music at first, accessibility, but also for Resonate itself to have that happening. So I'm extremely grateful that I had the opportunity, and everything went great. So
What was your repertoire? What did you play?
I played so music from anime. One is called, I don't know if you know anime, but one is called One Summer's Day from Joe. What's his pronunciation? Something Isaishi is a Japanese name. So
Mhm,
One Summer's Day is a piece for piano and orchestra for one of the anime,
mhm.
Spirited Away. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've seen that anime. And then we played together also with a singer. She was a guest as well, in This Corner of the World, which is a very beautiful song with a choir. It was a full set. Where like 70 elements in the orchestra, full orchestra, choir, piano, and a solo singer. Was wonderful. Then we played music from a bunch of other anime, like Attack of Titans, Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, some music from that more mainstream. And we played Owl Moving Castle, beautiful song. So there's a was a quite diverse program, and with a full orchestra, and the choir itself was quite powerful music, which I enjoyed playing with the orchestra and the choir.
That's great. I want to go back to your career. I know that you studied both the music and the first three parts, and I know that in your life you have the music and you have something else. Can you talk of the something else?
So that's something else. You meaning like my microgreens business?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, from I always have this passion for nature. Enjoy the outdoors. I loved plants. That's why I did forestry and environmental sciences. I had the goal early on when I enrolled in university to make an impact in, sustainability, sustainable practices, really take care of, the world, if you want, in a very early age. When I decided to get into environmental sciences, I wanted to really make the world a better place. You're young and all these like ideals of what you're going to do with your life, and so that's what I wanted to do. And when I got injured, I was no longer able to pursue certain stuff, and I saw what I saw online one day, this cool thing, indoor farming, which I was not that familiar with. I knew it was something vertical farming, indoor farming, you kind of heard, but I didn't know. I never thought about doing anything with that. And one day I saw microgreens, microherbs, and I said that's what I want to do. So this is probably a year and a half after my injury, about a year and a half. I decided to start this company, which is called Strathcona Microgreens, and we are able to now supply many restaurants. I like to work closely with chefs and grocers and home chefs all throughout Alberta. So we have many chef clients, and we grow to order. We have over 40 varieties. I'm here right now, and all the production is downstairs. I have some of my guys that are taking care of a few of the tasks, and it's been a very growing enterprise. No pun intended. But basically, I started with one rack in the closet of my spare bedroom in my apartment. I really set up one of these racks and started experimenting with the product, the crops. Most of what we grow is a very fast turnover. It's about 11-day cycle. We go up to 5 or 6 weeks for some crops, but most of them, the bulk of the production is on 11 days turnover. So I started experimenting in my closet, inside the closet, and from there we grow very quickly. We fill the room. I filled the room very quickly, and then moved within about a year into a commercial space, and we filled that up now. So I'm looking to expanding the commercial space here, because we need more space. So it's a good problem to have, but still a problem to solve. And so it's something I love doing, that regained me having contact and connection with plants, and I really love doing what I do. So I guess that's been clear when I roll into these restaurants and meet with chefs in the middle of the winter with the snow, with my wheelchair stuck, and try to jump around and rolling into these restaurants with the set of samples. At least these people that I'm meeting with, they think, "Oh, this dude really wants to do this," because it's just quite the struggle to get into the places in the winter in Edmonton when the snow is like a foot or more. So now it's a bit easier because I was able to hire, and I am not doing some of the more practical tasks that also in a wheelchair would. It's, as I said, it was a struggle at first. I was doing everything. So yeah.
Are you playing the piano to your plants so that they grow better?
I thought about putting some Mozart, so with the speakers, and see if something happens. But it's quite the. I'll try one day. I've been saying this for a year now or more. I say I'm gonna do it one day. I put these speakers and blast Mozart 24/7. It's gonna be maybe changes something in the growth. You never know.
Okay, I have a question about the way. I love this question because everybody has a different concept about it. It's about accessibility in the arts, or about what we call disability culture sometimes. So what is it to you to improve this world and make it more accessible to people who have been in your situation for years, and bringing more accessibility in that?
So in short, because I think the disability topic is an important one, but it has to become a non-topic. So that's the core of what I think. Like at the end, you want to provide equality of opportunities for whoever, and then base your work on competence. So there is that quote which I really like, which says the accessibility, or it's not the person who is giving you the towel, or the paper towel, is the person who's changing the location of it. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be able to do stuff for yourself within reasonable, within reasonable common sense that a space or workplace or whatever you're approaching requires, and you then have to, as a disabled person, provide value like anyone else. And at the end, disability should not be even a topic. If you're good enough and you make yourself unvaluable for whatever company you're working with or for whatever job you're doing, and then it doesn't matter if you're disabled or not. We don't remember Stephen Hawking for necessarily for his wheelchair. We remember Stephen Hawking because he did great things with his mind, with the tools he had. I'm sure he complained. He was grumpy, but he still yet did whatever he had to do. And we read his books. The greatest people nowadays that works on avant-garde, they're still referring to Stephen Hawking, not because he was disabled, but because of what he brought to the world. So that's where we should aim to go. And eventually we should not even think about disability, yes or no. It's just a person. I'm just a dude sitting down doing my things. And if it's valuable to you, good. If it's not, maybe I should try another person. If 100 people, 1,000 people don't find me valuable, maybe I'm wrong. And then maybe I should step up. No pun intended. But that's the bottom line at the end. And you want to make the world, of course, with equality of opportunities, because sometimes if you don't do that and you have an environment where you're discriminating for whatever reason, which is stupid to do.
Okay, so I have a last question, which is about people who might have like motivated you, inspired you, counted in your career, in your path as a pianist. Um, if you could think of one or two people, who would it be and why?
Yeah, so I would say that I really go to my family, my mom, my dad. So my family, my professor, my music teacher, that taught me music and discipline. So those are the figure that I would say resonate with me and gave me lots, obviously. Then musically speaking, I have some of these reference for great musicians and pianists, like Christian Zimmerman was like, I was a fan of the guy growing up, or Martha Argerich. You can name Michelangelo, Italian. I love this Debussy playing. Pollini, in many of his performances. So and that's something also that it keeps me going with Resonate, because I was 11, 12. I was in the conservatory practicing. It's hard as hell to learn how to play the piano. It takes a lot of practice. And then, you look up to these great musicians like Christian Zimmerman. They motivate you to keep going because you want to be one of them one day, right? As a young teenager. And I'm imagining these kids with disabilities that may be gifted and want to pursue music career, and then their dreams are broken. So really Resonate, the core why of Resonate is to give back these dreams and make sure that kids with disability are able to express themselves with music, and perhaps coming up like the next prodigy, and not being broken by just a disability, right? So yeah, I would say mainly my family, my teacher, that gave me a lot over my lifetime.
Well, I know your teacher was very important, since for those who have seen Push, we actually meet your teacher.
Yeah.
And it was very emotional for you to come back and to. So Can you briefly talk about this meeting?
Yes, these guys at CBC, they got me crying, which I hate. They wanted me to cry for the whole season one. They couldn't do it, and Sean, the producer, the executive producer, was like, "Ah, you never crack." Eh? We were making fun, and they got me in season two. These bastards, they got it. But like, it was definitely very emotional. They flew all the way with me to Italy, and Brian, as you've seen him push, we went to Italy, and it was one of the craziest, most intensive week. I would say it was very real. Always have these two cameras around, the sound guy, the producer, following everywhere. Me and Brian, and I went and see again my music teacher for the first time in really since my injury. Uh, so, and I avoided that. I've been avoiding it for a while. I didn't want to see him because I was still dealing with my stuff. So I didn't. I was really, respectful and kind of a bit scared of the interaction. And so that week, I went and met with him, and it's been a build up of emotions. And when it was definitely, um, special to be able to see him again, and they captured it with cameras. They did it. They did it. I didn't want to, but they did it. That's okay. Actually, it's pretty good. I'm grateful that that's captured, and that moment is like recorded and it's there. I can see it. It was pretty special moment to share. So yeah, and now I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks. I just had a baby girl. I don't know if you know. I just had a daughter. She's
Oh,
3 months old, and
congratulations.
thank you. So we're going back home for a couple of weeks so that we can baptize her, and he's going to meet my daughter and my whole family because they haven't met her yet. And yeah, so life's busy, I guess. Also, but it's full of purpose, which is great.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and for sharing your amazing product. Actually, this episode will come with a resource page, and we
Okay,
will publish all information about Resonate and about you.
thank you.
So I hope you can. This project is amazing, and I know you sold some of your products already in Australia and the US and
Yeah.
Scotland. Is that correct?
Yes. How do you know that? I said it somewhere, I think. Yes, yes, yes. There's this girl from Scotland, and every story is crazy. Like I received these intake forms and people reaching out through the website, through the Resonant website, and it's really heartbreaking. I'm so glad that I'm going to be able to give this to these people because they need it, they want it. This lady, she's doing music school, she was considering quitting, but then her grandparents stepped in and said, "You know what? We found this thing. We are gonna pay and buy it for you." So she
Wow.
continued music. That's just like that's why I'm doing it. Literally, that's the reason why I'm doing it. And many people keep reaching out every week. So hopefully we can get this out sooner than later. We are almost there, so we should come anytime.
Well, have a great trip to Italy.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
maybe talk next time.
Yes, yes. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Diana. Thank
Bye.
you.